Welcome to episode 1 of talking about my character's Minecraft lore as I hunt for some pale oak wood. So this is starting off. There are 2 different lores for my character. One is pretty much where there's no magic, and the second where there is. So I will be starting off with the no magic lore. And pretty much, this starts on a server, of course. And this is not tied to any specific server, this is just like a broad thing. Pretty much, the rules of that server were, if any hybrid was deemed to pretty much be, say, extinct or non-existent, then you could not harm, hurt, or kill that hybrid because it was endangered. And pretty much that's where the first hybrid comes in, Orchid. Orchid is a Moobloom hybrid who was created in a lab after the extinct Moobloom. And pretty much with this, no one could hurt her or harm her in any way, shape, or form. Meaning that she was pretty much like she was treated extremely well in the lab. And pretty much, she liked everyone and everyone liked her, because she was very helpful. And she grows up in that lab being treated very, very nicely. But on the other side, there's Azul, a Warden hybrid. And Warden hybrids are highly aggressive. They were treated very, very differently to the way that Orchid was treated. She was constantly hurt and made to do things that she didn't want to do. In doing so, she didn't trust the scientists who created her at all. She hated them. She would attack them constantly. And pretty much, she did not like people. She hated people. This lab was very different from the others because it was owned by that server's government who wanted to create something that could fight that no one else could attack. So pretty much imagine a soldier that could do unspeakable things but no one could harm it. That's what they wanted to create. In doing so, they started researching a bunch of extinct hybrids and landed on a couple to pick. Their favorite being the Moobloom, because it was a very calm kind of species. They didn't attack, they were docile, and in so, they were very easy to gain the trust of. So that was why they created Orchid. Because they wanted to fuse her to something that could attack. Azul, when they were created at a young age, they were forced to fight constantly. The lab had a ring where they'd bring any and all of their hybrids that they created and made them fight to stay alive. Azul grew up fighting others. They didn't like it because only one of them could leave the room alive. And Azul hated it. She hated how she couldn't fight back. She hated that she had to fight. And she didn't like this at all. So she started trying to plot her escape. She teamed up with a couple other hybrids and they were planning to escape. One was an Ender Dragon hybrid and the other was a Guardian. One of the nights, when the guards were swapping their shifts, all 3 of them broke out of their cells and they got out of the lab, which started a manhunt for them. They were gone for days and days on end. It was about a week until the scientists found them again. And by that point, so many of them were killed by them that they decided to end the Ender Dragon and the Guardian. They only wanted Azul because Azul was the more powerful of the 2. It was very devastating for Azul to have her two closest friends killed like that, so it just amplified and made her hate the scientists even more. So when they dragged her back to the lab, they didn't interact with Azul at all. They kept her locked up in the cell in hopes to try and weaken her. It worked. Without being fed and without really being treated decently, Azul started to weaken, which they found good because it would make the next experiment easier. Their next experiment was pretty much fusing Azul and Orchid together. It would be very difficult to get Azul to work for them, so they decided to get Orchid to unknowingly lead them to the room. And because Orchid trusts the scientist so much, she listens without much bickering. Because she doesn't know any better, she decides to help them. Because she trusts them so much. The next day, when they wake up, the scientists give her a small little list, and it says to pretty much, we need you to bring this experiment over here. And Orchid's like, okay, because she trusts them. So she ends up going to Azul's door, and there's no scientists around when she leaves, so she's very confused. Azul is as well, so she's on high alert. Orchid pretty much leads them to the room and leads them inside. The scientist quickly comes around and shuts the door. Azul, of course, starts panicking and starts trying to break down the door. Orchid, on the other hand, isn't panicking and is saying this is fine, because she trusts them. Azul and Orchid start fighting because Azul is trying to tell Orchid that they are bad people. But Azul doesn't like them. She's trying to get Orchid on her side. Orchid, never being mistreated by the scientist, doesn't believe her and starts bickering back at her, saying that she's lying and that the scientist would never do that. They just keep on bickering back and forth until finally the scientist's experiment is started. A weird light flashes through the room, giving Azul and Orchid both headaches, and they both pass out. When they both awake, they are both in the same body. It is weird because they can both hear each other, but they can't do anything. And they both start panicking because they don't know what to do. When the scientists come in, Orchid takes over and tries to greet them. But being fused with Azul means that she has Azul's strength and doesn't understand why the scientist is trying to get her off. Because she used to hug them like that all the time, and she doesn't realize she's hurting them. Azul, on the other hand, is yelling at Orchid in the background to knock it off because they're bad people. Being fused together means that both of them now need to learn to get along and work together, which is quite difficult because both of them have different views on the scientists. Orchid trusts them completely, while Azul is skeptical of them and doesn't trust them at all. It starts off simple enough, with Orchid being in control most of the time of the body, and Azul only really coming into control when she feels that Orchid's in danger, which is any time the scientists show up. Orchid can't seem to comprehend why Azul is so scared of the scientists. They've been nothing but nice to her. Soon they are forced to fight. And Azul knows the room very well, so she ends up taking control, and they are put against another hybrid, which The scientists thought it would be funny to fuse an Ender Dragon and Guardian hybrid together, to remind Azul of her two friends who she had watched died in front of her. Azul is visibly shaken at this. She didn't expect the scientists to do something this cruel. But she knows the rules. Only one of them can leave alive. Azul ends up taking full control of the body and tells Orchid not to watch. Orchid, confused by her actions, is questioning why. Azul ends up telling her that only one of them can leave alive, and Orchid said they wouldn't do that. Azul ends up shaking her head and tells Orchid to just not watch. The fight goes on as normal, but in it, Orchid fights for control, saying that they don't have to fight the other. Azul, getting frustrated, ends up yelling back at Orchid, saying, "Stop interrupting me, you're going to get us both killed." Orchid, not used to people yelling at her, starts crying, and she leaves Azul alone like asked. Azul feels bad for yelling at Orchid, but they had to. It's a fight and they can't lose, otherwise they're gonna be dead. They end up fighting, Azul and Orchid reigning victorious, but are badly injured. The scientists end up patching them up, and Orchid is happy about that, because she said, "See, they wouldn't do that." She didn't see the entire fight because Azul wouldn't let her. They both end up talking more, and Orchid still can't believe that the scientists would do that to someone because she had been treated so nicely by them. But after more convincing from Azul and Azul showing her some of her scars, she starts to click in that maybe the scientists aren't as good as they say they are. But Orchid is still not fully trusting of Azul because Azul's mean. After a few more months of them fighting and reigning victorious, the scientists say they have a special thing for them. They end up taking Azul and Orchid outside of the lab. And there looks to be a bunch of other hybrids outside the lab as well. Others who are similar to them, where it is a calm hybrid fused with a dangerous one, or two dangerous hybrids fused together. It's very confusing. Orchid doesn't understand what's going on, but Azul immediately clues in that something isn't right and they need to get out. Being one of the more powerful hybrids, Azul knows that they probably only have a couple minutes before things start going downhill. So quickly, Azul makes a distraction. She knocks one of the other hybrids over and starts a small fight. Some of the scientists and guards start trying to break up the fight, which gives them a quick minute to escape. Azul quickly breaks off the chains that were holding her down. And they end up leaving. They need to be quick. The scientists are right on their trail. So, Azul ends up taking a road that she noticed some of the hybrids take as well, whenever they were escaping first. Azul, knowing that the scientists had probably went to the roadway when she was first captured, she takes a different route. She doesn't know it. It was not mapped like the first one was, but she thinks she'll get the upper hand, and she's correct. Her and Orchid end up running, and they end up escaping. They make it to a small town, and the town is quite confused by them, so Orchid takes control and sweetly asks one of them where they are and how they can leave, and one of them points her towards a weird portal. This portal is a server portal allowing people to leave. Azul and Orchid are both slightly nervous, but they know they have to take a chance, otherwise they might get sent back to the lab. So, they go through. They end up on this server that they later learned was called Hypixel. It is such an interesting server. There are so many weird mini-games that they found. They enjoyed them. Azul's favorite being murder mystery, and Orchid's favorite being drawing. She enjoyed the drawing game because she got to see people build and make cool things. They end up meeting a person that they later lose contact with, but they wish their friend all the best. This friend taught them about other servers that they could join. They ended up going to one, but they later left it because one of their friends that they met on there had joined a different server. So they end up hopping servers with that one friend before they're waiting for a new one to open. And in doing so, it led them to a thing called a private server. One where they could explore, experience amazing things all on their own without the risk of others interfering. So, they end up creating one. They find cool mods, they find interesting things that they want to mess around with and play with. So they end up doing that. And it's fun. They have time to themselves, they can build whatever they want, they can create whatever they want without the risk of someone breaking it or destroying it. Unlike the other servers they were on. And they love it. They love having this place to themselves, they love everyone who they've met. But they also do feel quite lonely being alone on the server by themselves. But they don't really have anyone to play with. But they are fine with that, because it means that they can't really get hurt again. Which leads them to explore, build a house, and have fun. With each new exploration, they end up hearing a third voice start talking to them. This third voice starts calling itself Scarlet, and they start talking about what they're experiencing and what they're seeing. Scarlet seems to be a mix of Azul and Orchid in one. They don't want to fully take over the body that the three of them share, but they also don't want to be removed. All three of them start talking, and they start breaking off all of the different biomes on where they want to be in control and where they don't mind sharing being in control. Azul, of course, wanting to protect them, takes the more dangerous biomes like the End, the Nether, and the Deep Dark, along with some cave systems. Scarlet, loving the adventure, decides to help protect them in some of the cave systems when Azul is tired and doesn't really want to take over and they want to leave. And Scarlet also enjoys adventuring above ground, so they'll take over in any of the darker biomes as well. Orchid, loving how some servers are, how some biomes are, she'll take over in plains biomes, forest biomes, or any of the safer biomes. And of course, her and Scarlet will share taking over in villages and any of the peaceful structures. Azul, enjoying challenges, will take over in some of the trial chambers, and she'll also take over if they are in and heading towards the end. The three of them share the body and are happy with their arrangement of sharing the different biomes and sharing the adventures and being safe. They're enjoying some of the creatures that they're finding along the way, even though they can't really tame them yet. They're excited to explore this new world, and they're excited to pillage and gather materials and have fun. To them, it's a new adventure, and they're excited to share it with you. I hope you all enjoyed my short storytelling of the first part of my character's lore. For some of you who didn't really understand it or were very confused, here's a short breakdown of it. Pretty much, Azul and Orchid were created on a server where the law is if a hybrid is deemed extinct or going extinct, you can't harm them. And the scientists who created them wanted to create something that couldn't be harmed or killed. So it made sense to them to fuse Azul and Orchid together to create something that couldn't be killed. And in doing so, they end up escaping. And when they escape, they end up hopping through Hypixel and other random servers. They end up hopping to Bed Wars servers. They end up hopping to Murder Mystery servers, Hide and Seek servers, Build Battle servers. They end up hopping to a couple of Anarchy servers. They end up hopping through all of these different types of servers, and they end up falling in love with town kind of servers, and servers where they can just have fun. They also end up meeting a friend who brings them to another server. And they end up enjoying it because, well, they're different on that server. They end up picking an origin, as they called it. I'll tie more into the origin server in episode 3. This episode leads us into Sculk Bloom Adventures, where we're following Azul, Orchid, and Scarlet as they explore this new private world that they have created and get to experience and share with us. It's fun to the three of them because they get to look around and explore and see things that they never got to see on those public servers or on that old server where they first came from. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy episode 2 of the lore behind my character. Bye!